Laura, what's going on? How are you tonight?
I am excellent. It is actually final debate night. It's like football, debate, and he said she said night.
Thank God this won't be posted until tomorrow. Or the
I
three people that actually do watch this won't, and then there will be none. And I'll feel embarrassed and like self-conscious. So,
know.
anyway, so what are we talking
So,
about tonight?
I am very excited about what we're going to talk about tonight because I feel like we opened the door last week when we talked about introducing when and how to introduce someone new to the kiddies. And I guess it just makes logical sense that we should move right along into the sex and the first sleepover.
Okay. I'm a bit old-fashioned. Now, I wasn't always that way, all right? I think I've said before, when I got divorced and became single again, I went off the crazy train, okay? And it took me a while to rein myself back in and think everything that's holy, that my kids were so young when I got divorced, because I've said before, I was able to hide all of my screw ups behind their naivety
Hmm.
and nap times and going to bed at 7 o'clock and all the other
Right.
stuff. So now that I've got a 10 and an 8-year-old, I obviously don't have that flexibility and that luxury anymore. So when I met the Queen, I was adamant we would not do sleepovers with the kids ever. And in almost 4 years, we have only broke that rule one time. And it turned out to be a disaster. And we have never done it since. And that rule, and then that one time was like 3 years ago. So we've never had sleepovers since then.
Well, it hasn't been so black and white or cut and dry for me. Actually, lots of things haven't been at since my divorce. And you and I have spoken about this, and I have happily, unbelievably happily married parents for 48. They've been married 48 years, and I value and I believe in the ability to create and sustain a really happy marriage. However, my journey after divorce has not been like that. It hasn't been, that piece of what I thought was my vision ended then, and I've been trying to navigate what the hell I feel about it ever since. And so Drew and I have been together for 5 years, and he was the first person that I allowed into our home and into the lives of my kids, and therefore also progressed into the first sleepover, which was very awkward and very uncomfortable. And I took a lot of time to prepare and plan as best I could by, just like some of the things we talked about last week, letting my kids know they'd become familiar with him. And it was one of those things where I think I layered like 45 layers of clothing on me that night and was like, I walked around like bundled, robed, like tied up, like Fort Knox, and door wide open and talking really loudly so the kids knew that they could be welcome in my room, and I sweated it out the whole night. It was like horrible,
Right.
but but we did it and we got over it, and our relationship then progressed to the point where Drew there was a point Drew did move in with us.
Mm-hmm.
And which of course was another challenge to my whole like, oh shit, what am I doing? Because the notion of having someone live with me was never something that came into my world, ever. Wasn't something that happened before I got married and clearly hadn't happened afterwards. That's a whole nother subject. So we won't even go to the living together thing. But I think the way I feel about it is that my feeling is that it has a place um, if two people are in agreement, but that again, it has to be with intention and thoughtfulness and preparation. It cannot be the sleep over and sneak out at 5 a.m. and we're going to hope that nobody wakes up and figures it out, because they do. As you well know, I had, my kids came down one night, and this wasn't even sex or a sleepover, but I had someone over watching a movie, which I shared in the last video, and they, to this day, say to me that I had sex in front of them, which none of that actually happened. So interesting, but you and I diverged.
You made the statement before that you didn't really know how you felt about remarriage, about getting married again. That it's clearly not a absolute for you. But when you were talking about kind of how you were formulating moving in together, you said that it should be done with intention and purpose. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
That means that for me, it meant there was a lot of consideration to what this relationship and it means to me. Mm-hmm. And that I in no way wanted or want to ever bring... I want to be a role model for my children as far as the kind of partner I am in a relationship. Right. And I understand that one could argue that what kind of role model are you being by, living together without being married, or having someone sleep over without being married, or, right. I get that. I understand that. I'm willing to take that hit. But on the other hand, my relationship is one of intention and is one of commitment, and all of the ways that I act and that we act together as a couple, as partners, is everything I would express and be within a marriage, if that makes sense.
So you're dating as if.
Dating as if.
My reasoning for taking the approach that I've taken is I have a daughter. Okay. And if I fast forward 10 years, so she calls me from college. She's 20 years old. Dad, I really, really love this guy, Larry. And we've been dating for 4 months, and I really, really love him, and he's asked me to move in. I look at it like this, Laura. If I had a history of living with the Queen, and we all know, both of us know, the first reaction to my daughter would be, hell no. Right? At least I would hope that would be the reaction. How could I, in good faith, tell her no, knowing full well that she witnessed her dad doing the exact thing that I'm now telling her she can't do, and then using this bullshit argument that people today love to use, which goes something like this. Well, I'm an adult and I get to do things you can't do. What a load of shit. That if that gets you through the night, whoever uses that argument, that's fine. But let me tell you, that will backfire eventually. There's no doubt. That's my logic. Clearly, my son's the same way, all right? And the justification for why I do it is equally applied to him as it is to her. But as a daughter, it scares me to death. And she is going to look for the actions and the behaviors that she sees in me to be her barometer for what she looks for in men in her future. I got to set the bar high.
Not sure. And I'm glad there's a screen between us. That if you and the queen shared overnight, I mean, it's clear to your children. You've been in this relationship. You're modeling for them and so many levels, what it means to be partnered with someone in a way that honors the commitment that you have. And we've discussed that, and I'm sure we'll discuss it again. But I'm not sure that would get destroyed in any way or marginalized if the extension of that was she shares time overnight, that she and my dad share a physical intimacy, because that is part of what it means to be committed and partnered. And, and the difference is not that I agree with you that it is total bullshit that we're adults and blah, 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 but our circumstance is different. It isn't that we are just single, right? Like so many divorced people go off and they think, woohoo, I'm single.
Right.
No, we're not. We're single parents. And so the responsibility is different. It is bigger than. And so it's not like it would be easy for you to jump into, hey, we're going to move in and get married. There's a lot more to consider. So I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I understand it and I respect that choice very, very much. And it's caused me my own struggle in deciding how I was going to move forward with all of this. And I think part of that is that life after divorce isn't always black and white. It is really difficult to sift through some of these
hypotheticals for a moment.
Okay.
So you and Drew have been living together for a while, and you have assumed the role of husband and wife, at least in the context of the relationship with your sons.
Correct.
He's the man of the house in the home when you're there, and he's there. Okay, so you've created that traditional dynamic. Because you haven't gone through the ceremony, so you're not married. Hypothetically speaking, if you and him were to break up, do you feel the impact that would have on your boys who are still living with you would be any less significant because you're not married?
No, I don't. I think it would be hugely significant.
So, and this is not a question for you. This is just a question in general about the whole living deal. If people decide to live together because it's easier than getting married, and they've got kids,
then they're kidding themselves.
They've lost their minds.
Well,
it's easier for you, all right? I'm not going to blanket statement this with everybody because I don't know your and Drew's situation, but for the people that I know that have moved in together, it normally boils down to a matter of convenience. Financial convenience, relationship convenience, helping with the kids' convenience. That's really what it boils down to.
I'll go back to intention and purpose, because I have to say, and we probably will have to take this part up in a whole different video or whole different dialogue, which is I removed, or we, Drew and I, without even knowing it until you just said it, we removed all of the financial, the convenience, the helping out with stuff, and made the decision outside of that, which made it so much more profound for me.
Sure.
He never stepped into the role of carpool guy and grocery guy or this, that, and the other. This was something that we, and it went back to the first night he slept over, that it was with intention and purpose, that this was not something to be taken lightly, that stepping over that line and into, you know, a sleepover and sex in the house where my children sleep was just a very significant decision. And I don't think that that decision is made with intention and purpose all that often today. And I think it's a real issue. I think it's a real problem because for the kids, the question you asked is dead on, which is for them, it's extremely profound when new people come into their life and when new people leave their life.
My 10 and 8-year-old doesn't understand the nuances of a marriage agreement. Okay?
Exactly.
They know this, that if me and the Queen were living together, we were doing everything, we were sleeping in the same bed together, all they know is Daddy is with this woman. All right? And she is there and she is filling the mom role while they are here. Whether or not there's a ring, whether or not there is a marriage certificate is inconsequential. And quite frankly, I think a lot of parents, and I'm just going to say this very candidly, and this may upset some people, the fact that you would even put the burden on your children to decipher the difference says a lot about you. Because really what you're doing at the end of the day is you're telling your 4-year-old daughter or your 5-year-old son to decipher the difference between Daddy is married and Daddy's only dating someone. And they should know the difference in case Daddy and this other person don't.
Very good point. I know that's that's a hard nut to swallow. And it's interesting because I have a 15 and an 18-year-old who, you know, this was not that long ago that Drew did move in, and it's interesting for them because they do consider us married in a lot of sense. And in fact, refer to him, especially my younger son, as stepfather,
Sure.
Which is fine. But we also talk. You know, I also, different from perhaps the ages of your kids, although they're, you know, getting a little older, we talk a lot about what that commitment means, what it meant for him to come into our home, and what that means for our relationship, and what my hope is to share with them as somebody who's in a partnership, and what that partnership and commitment means, whether there's a ring on or not. And I think, Kyle, sometimes I'm driven by this incredible urgency and desire to, and maybe this is because my marriage didn't work, that a ring and a marriage certificate won't save you if you don't value and you don't create the kind of relationship that can survive the test of time. And so I think that there's a piece of me that kind of says, you know, fuck the marriage. You know, let's not talk about the marriage. Let's talk about the relationship within it. And so, you know, I'm deciphering all of these things as, of course, they're getting older. And I have an 18-year-old who's going to be, you know, he's going to be that guy in college. And we're going to have to navigate those. He's going to be with some chick that's going to have a dad like you. My final thoughts are that there's no right or wrong answer. However, within that, again, and I'll come back to the words that we come back to so often in these videos, which is whatever decision you make, whether it's when to have sex and how with your new partner, whether it's to have them stay overnight, whether it's to live together or make a decision not to do that, it has to be with intention and purpose. And I think my parting thought is that it's not about the marriage necessarily, that the focus is on the commitment of the relationship, the quality of the relationship, and how important that is in our children's lives, what that means for them. It's so profound for them.
Know the fire with which you are playing. If The decision to combine two families that doesn't involve a marital commitment, okay, we'll go that far. If that decision is based on, I'm going to use the word bourgeois reasons. So financially, I'll be able to have a little extra money in the bank, or she'll be able to help with the kids, or he'll be able to take care of me financially, or any of those other, tangible reasons, you've already headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Okay? Because eventually, those reasons alone won't keep the relationship going when it does go sideways.
Correct.
All right? It just will not. And how you are going to explain that to your children, if and when that happens, is going to be the ultimate burden you have to bear. Because they will model your behavior. And as parents, if we don't understand that, to paraphrase Laura, you're kidding yourself. And at the end of the day, they will throw back your behavior as their justification. And at that point, you don't have a leg to stand on. The whole argument, well, I was an adult and I can do things because I understand, went out the window. And now you have to deal with the choices that you've made. Personally speaking, if we are going to stop the tide of divorce, and none of us want our children to go through divorce. No one says, I hope my son has his heart ripped out or my daughter does too. No one's going to say that. If we are going to stop that, we have to do our best as parents to model the behavior that will lead to that not happening. That makes some tough choices for us, and that makes some significant sacrifices.
Yes.
And if we're not willing to do that, we're exacerbating the problem. So with that, Laura, I will bid you adieu.
Woo!
I love the shirt, by the way. Show everybody.
I'm
Check
wearing
it
my
out.
Chopper Papa shirt.
I'm sorry, people. There are no more. So if you want one, sorry. Anyway, Laura, till next week. Have a great one.
Bye.